As we get to the end of the summer and autumn sales from a lot of the main vendors, I wanted to cover some of the bargains that are still available on models which I have familiarity with, either because I own them or because they're models I may have reviewed on the channel over the last couple of years. There is some really good value to be had out there, so I want to go through these, and I know that there's a time factor involved in some of these as well, as some of them are selling out. So let me get through a top 10. Not in any particular order, and then I might have a couple of bonus entries as well at the end. And as I say, these are all models that I am familiar with, and this video isn't in any way sponsored by any of the vendors involved. It's my own video, my own view of these particular models and what I consider to be pretty good value for models that I would like. So let's get into it. So the first one here is a Class 57 from Bachmann and the Arriva trains livery, and this is available from both Kernow and also from Rails of Sheffield, and it's coming in at this very reasonable $119.99 type price, which I think is good value for a fully featured Bachmann locomotive, Class 57. It is the old tooling version, not the new one, but they are still very good models, and I think this is a nice model at that sort of price. So it won't fit with everybody's layout because of the livery, etc. If this livery is an option for you, then this might be something you want to consider. Next one up is some really good value coming from Kernow, and Kernow do have a number of models that will feature on the list today. This one is one that I've kind of noticed over the last few weeks, and it's the Class 24 from Bachmann, and it's available in 3 different liveries for the price including sound. Like, this is a sound fitted model now of $189.99. That is a really good price. Like, that's typically the kind of RRP from Bachmann for a non-sound fitted locomotive. That's typically what you get from Bachmann, which is obviously a bit on the high side. However, this does include sound, and this is a nice model. I had an earlier version of these from Bachmann, this particular model, which I was happy with, and I think the retooled version does add a lot of extras to it, and it makes it a more complete and more detailed model. And there's 3 liveries, which is the good news. It's in the BR blue, it's in the BR green, and it's also in the experimental livery, which is actually quite an attractive livery. And that particular model is even cheaper at $179.99. So this is a top class model from Bachmann with factory fitted sound, coming in at £190 or $180 in terms of the experimental livery. Definitely worth considering if you're modelling this era. So I think this is a really good value. There's no other vendor selling this model for this sort of price. Even discounted, you're going to pay more than that from the other vendors. So well done to Kernow. This is good value, and if I was modelling this particular era, which I don't really do, I would seriously be looking to purchase one of these. Okay, let's go to the next model on my list, and this is again a model I would have covered on the channel, the Hornby Class 60, not this particular livery but some of the other liveries. Again, I do like the Class 60 from Hornby. It is a little bit older model, but it's a very strong performing model. It's a good runner, it's a good puller, and I think when you get it for this sort of price, when it includes 2 of the Accurascale HYA wagons, which I've also reviewed on the channel, I think that's really good value for $189.99. So again, you're talking about that sort of price being the typical price from Hornby for this particular model, and usually Class 60s sell maybe £170 from the retailers, that kind of price range. Whereas here now you're getting 2 HYAs, which the equivalent of about £70 in addition, included with the locomotive. I think that's really, really good value. So and I have reviews for both of these. I'll have links in the description. Seriously, if I did not have either of these models, I would certainly be looking at this. This is certainly a very interesting offer, of a nice GBRf livery on the Class 60 as well. So definitely worth consideration. Next up is another model I've covered on the channel in the past, and it's a Class 73 from Dapol. Now, there were some problems with my original Dapol model, which have been more or less resolved on the newer versions, so this is one of the newer ones. But it's coming in at this very attractive price of $99.95. I think there are a number of liveries actually available as well for this particular model. This is one that I particularly like, and I think it's one that many modelers might like, particularly more contemporary modelers would like to get this particular livery. So I think this is definitely worth consideration. This $99.95 for a fully spec'd Dapol locomotive. So if you get one of the Hornby TXS decoders, their new Bluetooth decoders, they do have a profile for the Class 73. So you're talking about getting DCC sound, Bluetooth controlled sound, which you'll pick up for about £60 from the retailers, added to this model. So for £160, you've got a sound equipped model. That's pretty good. So again, a tempting one if you like Class 73, and this is the nice Southwest livery. Again, something to consider here. This is really good value. So another model that I have reviewed on the channel in the past is the Hornby Class 67. And this one is in the new Transport for Wales livery, and it's also weathered. So TMC are selling this model with their own kind of basic weathering. And you probably know on the channel, I kind of am a fan of having some weathering on a model. Even this kind of basic level, I think, is enough for a model like this. And for £140, 40 pence. So I think this is pretty good value. You'd normally be paying 160, 170 for this particular model, and to get it, if you are somebody who likes a bit of weathering, to get it weathered out of the box like this, I think is very attractive. So a nice model, it's a good running model. Again, it's a little bit on the older side, but well worth having, I think, and definitely worth going with. So check that out from the Model Centre. As I said, they do have other good bargains at this point in time. So the next one on my list is a model that I actually have, and I'm going to be doing a review of it and a running session for it. It's in my possession on the track, and I have been running it in, etc. So I do have some familiarity with it. It's not an absolutely perfect model, but it is a very decent model, and I think at this sort of price range at £158 from Hattons, I think this is actually worth that kind of money. Certainly the recommended retail price and the typical selling price, which is closer to the £200 mark, it just didn't make sense for this model. But I do like this model, and I think if you are interested in having a Mark IV contemporary train on your layout, this is definitely something you're going to be looking at. So as I said, I will be covering it and giving it a thorough shakedown as part of my normal reviews. But I have some early experience of it, and I'm just basing from my experience so far. I think this is an attractive price and definitely worth considering. And the other thing is that they also have it in the GNER livery, or if that's something that might line up with your layout a bit more, it's also at the same price. So I think this is very decent value from Hattons, and certainly worth checking out. And I think they may be sold out at the moment, still taking them for pre-order at this price. So I think get in there if you are interested in this model. I certainly was, and I think I paid a little bit more than that for it. I did get it discounted. Certainly at that price, I would be happy with paying that. Next up is a model which I've recently reviewed on the channel, and it's the EFE Rail Class 58. This is actually the version in the EWS livery, again from Kernow this time, and they're selling it at $99.99. So I think that's a really good price for what is a very good running model. I think it's decently specified in terms of detail as well. It mightn't have all the lighting features, etc., and bells and whistles that people would get on the very latest models, but a very decent model for this price. And the other aspect of this particular model is, again, if you're going to be using one of those HM7000 decoders, and this is what I did when I used it in my own running session, is you can stick a Class 56 profile onto this, which is the same prime mover as the 58. So you're getting pretty well the 58 sound, and that is available now from Hornby on their TXS decoders. So again, you're looking at a sound-fitted model, a very good running sound-fitted model for £160. Definitely worth consideration. I think this is at this sort of price, I don't think you can go wrong if it fits in with your layout and era and livery, etc. Now, if this particular livery doesn't work for you, there is another livery from Rails of Sheffield, a little bit more expensive, £10 more, which is in the Mainline blue diesel livery. And again, the same sort of benefits here, and I think that's not an exceptional increase. It's still very good value at that sort of price. So again, something you might want to look at. So moving on, so we're going to stay with Rails for the next one, and this is a Class 90. I've covered the Class 90 on the channel a while back, and this is one of the newer Class 90s, but they're all basically off the same tool. They're a nice model, a nice running model, a nice working pantograph on these particular models. And again, you're looking at a sound-fitted model here for $219.95. Again, I think that's pretty good value for a nicely fitted model. Definitely worth taking a look. $219.95. I think there's a few of these out there at this sort of price. And if you go to Kernow, they're again selling it at this price as well. Again, same price. This is a nice version. I think that's quite a nice livery. And again, sound fitted for $219.99. And again, another option from Kernow, same locomotive in the Freightliner livery. So again, something that you might want to consider, and there seems to be plenty of these ones in stock. So I think if you haven't had a Class 90 before and you might be interested, and again, if any of those fit in with your era and your layout, then certainly worth the consideration. Okay, let's move on. So this is again another model, in the budget category, I would say, a model I reviewed from Hornby, one of the Railroad Plus models, Class 47 in the Cullis, the very nice Cullis Rail livery, coming in at $69.99. A decent discount, and I think a very reasonable price for this model. And I know some people have been able to pick this up for even a little bit cheaper than this, but I think this price, I think, is a fine price for it. So I think if you're in the market for this type of model, a bargain type model, I don't think you're going to go too far wrong here. And again, I've covered the review. I've reviewed this one, and I'll stick a link in the description. So there's both a running session and a review with this particular model, so you can see how it performs. And for a railroad model, I was pleased with it, very pleased with it for that type of model. But it does have its limitations, of course, because it is a railroad model. Next up, a model that I kind of do like, and it's the Class 411. And this is coming in at a really good price of $199.95. This is a top quality model. This is a 4-car set, 4-car EMU. Each of these cars is really good quality from Bachmann. I did a review of the blue and grey version of this, which I paid a little bit more than this. I think I paid around $225 or something like that for it. I was very pleased with it. I thought it was very good value for that price, and for what is a very good quality and good running set. Hard to beat it. This is really good value, $119.95. And again, if this livery fits your layout, definitely something worth taking a look at. We've got through our 10, and we're going to go through, I have 3 others I want to cover actually, just to give kind of an honourable mention. We're back to Kernow now, and they've been having discounts on the Hornby Class 800 through the year. It's kind of been up and down. I think at one stage they had it discounted down to $299.99. That was a pretty good price. Available right now at $319.99. That's a decent price for this set. Not a perfect set, but it's still a very nice set, and again one that I've reviewed and critiqued. But I think that's a very decent price for this. And with the 4-car expansion coming in the future, this could be the basic set that you get, and then get the 4-car expansion to add to it. So definitely worth consideration again if you're a modern era modeler. Certainly something to look at that price. Another model which I have an earlier version of this from Bachmann, and I did get the Network Southeast version of this a few years ago, which I did review at the time, which had sound fitted as well. So overall I was very pleased with this model. It's got good levels of detail, it's got directional lighting, it's got internal lighting, coach lighting, and for $149.95 for a 2-car DMU, I think this is pretty good. A good quality DMU from Bachmann at this price is well worth looking at. And again, if I was in the market for this, I would be looking to pick it up at this sort of price. So I think this is an attractive model to take a look at. So the last one on my list today is again one of the more recent models that I've covered on the channel, and these are still available. They've been kind of discounted now. This is the DCC ready version without the smoke feature. $129.95, and there's a couple of liveries I think it's available from Hattons. And I like this model. The lighting is probably the main quirky aspect of it, and particularly if you're running it on DC, so I suppose that's probably the main thing to consider. But running it on DCC, it's a fine running model, and I was very pleased with it. And again, you'll see the review that I did, which was a slightly different livery to this. I actually like this particular livery as well, if it fits your era. Check it out. I think this might be an option for some people, a good quality model from Dapol, the Class 59. Okay, before I can actually finish this session, there are 2 other offers I do want to bring to your attention, which only I became aware of relatively late. So they're both from the Model Centre, and they're Hornby HST packs. These are the 2-car packs with a dummy and a power car. And there's one in the GWR livery, which is a most recent version of that, and also in the First Great Western livery. I think people refer to this as the fag packet livery. This is a fantastic model. This is the retooled version with the 21-pin decoder and the kinematic coupler at the rear, and which I've just reviewed actually, the East Coast version of this. And I do think it's a very good rendition of the Class 43 from Hornby. I think the editions are well worth having. They allow you to close couple and use magnetic couplers, etc., which is really good. And I think at this sort of price range, this is the kind of price this should be at. So it's well done from TMC. They've got both of these sets available at the moment. I think they're in stock at the moment. They still seem to have reasonable stock. So apologies I didn't get this into the first 10. This would have made my top 10, but better late than never. So mentioning it here at the very end, and I think these would come highly recommended, as does any of the retooled class 43s when you get them at this sort of price. So I think there were some other sales on. I know that one that is just finishing, unfortunately, which I didn't get to get this video out in time to cover, which was Model Railways Direct. They had some good value on their Mark III stock. They were selling a lot of their Mark III coaches for around £25 to £30. The retooled coaches, these would have been, so that's actually ended now, unfortunately. So, but maybe they still might have some of those at a discounted price. Hattons do have discounted Mark III coaches as well. So worth checking them out if that's of interest to you. Keep your eye open. I think as we head into the Christmas season, some of these are probably going to either sell out, or probably these sales will probably diminish a little bit over the next few months as the various retailers look to cash in on Christmas. So I think if you're interested in any of these, and hopefully you are, check them out sooner rather than later. Other thing I'd like you to do is, if you do have or have come across some really good value online over the last little while, please share that in the comments. You might put something in there that is just what somebody's looking for, and it's an opportunity for somebody to go and snatch something up at a good, decent saving. I wanted to get this out quickly, and there's kind of a time factor to it because, as I say, some of these are selling out. But hopefully this was of interest, and hopefully there's something in there that might be a model you like. And as I say, because these are models I have experience with, because I've got running sessions, I've got reviews done on all of these, I wouldn't be putting them into this list if I didn't feel they were decent models and worth your while actually looking at in the first place. You can see some very heavily discounted models, but that's because they may have been grossly overpriced to start out with, or they may have certain issues, in which case, they're being discounted to try to sell them off. I'm not really covering any models like that in this particular session. Okay, thanks for joining today. We'll hopefully see you on the next one. And in the meantime, take care and happy modelling.